Greetings to all in the love and light of the one infinite creator. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups on the L&L Research homepage, as well as on Facebook. We do meet on Zoom every Tuesday from 3:30 to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You don't have to live in the Seattle area to join our Facebook group or to join our Zoom sessions. All are welcome to join who are interested and available. It is also where we post announcements for future Zoomcasts and question and answer sessions. And today we are lucky again to be joined by Jim McCarty for some informal conversation and questions and answers about the law of one and how to live it in our daily lives. How are you doing today, Jim?
Doing well. The fall is here. We had 95 degrees about 3 days ago, and now we're down to 70 for a high.
Wow.
Right on time.
Yeah. As I recall, it was in the mid 80s last weekend, and here in Seattle, it's definitely taking on the crispness of autumn season. So it's beautiful to see the seasons changing. Speaking of which, I was reading your most recent Camelot Journal entries, and yes, I loved the preface that you included to the Living the Law of One 102 book on the outer work, and really looking forward to reading more quotes till it's published. Any thoughts you might care to share with us just on those first couple chapters of the book? Are you going to be including quotes that will be part of the published material, do you think, or perhaps unpublished?
The material that's coming now is from the outlines that Carla created for 102, the outer work, and 103, the inner work, and mentioned them in 101, the choice. So I've done the best I can to write a first draft with those outlines in mind, and using quotes in there that support the general ideas that she was trying to put forth. She had a goal for each of the chapters, and she listed that goal at the beginning of the chapter. So I included that everywhere. And it's been, so far, this is the first I've done the last 2 days of using 102, having finished all the Q&As for the raw contact after nearly 7 years of working on them. So I may refine the process in some way in the future. Right now, I'm just using direct quotes from the text and introducing them, maybe with a comment here or there. But all of that could change. And I also need to let people know that Austin and Gary have begun editing 102, but with a heavy workload and everything happening with LL Research recently, it's kind of been stalled. So this might not be the final version in every instance that people will see when the book is published as a hard copy. So although I'd imagine the great majority of it will be, but there will be some editing done, I'm sure.
Nice. Yeah, much love and gratitude to Austin and Gary, of course, for helping with the editing. And Diana Roy also, I believe, also helping with the process.
She went all the way through 102, so it already has her edits in it.
Nice. Yeah, I know everyone at L&L is super busy, and especially with the last 3 homecoming gatherings of the past 6 weeks or so. I hope they're taking a long and much deserved rest.
Yes, truly.
Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, it's so wonderful that you're able to share some passages from it to give us some insights into the work, which we're looking forward to seeing when it does get published. Am I understanding correctly that the outer work refers mainly to the red, orange, and yellow energy centers?
Basically, it's how you use your spiritual journey in the outer world with people around you, and the society at large, and the environment, and so forth. Just how you apply it. And then when we get to the inner work, that's really the meat of the journey, I believe. Although how we express it outwardly is most important, but how we get there, how we get to that point where we can use the various energy centers more effectively to enhance our own spiritual journey that then we share with others around us. And so both of them are most important, and looking forward to sharing it all with folks. And I hope everybody enjoys it. And if they have any comments as to how to make it better, please let me know. You're welcome to be editors too.
Indeed. Yeah, really so looking forward to it. I did notice, of course, that you also concluded your study of all 106 sessions of the original Raw Contact. And a couple of days ago, I believe it was, that you included the epilogue to book 5, looking back at the life and passing of a beloved friend, Don. I was wondering, do you have any reflections to share on Don's life and passing some almost 40 years after the fact, and looking back at it now? Have any insights on it now that you didn't necessarily have 10, 20, 30 years ago?
Well, I have some thoughts about it. And again, they're just my thoughts. In the last session, well, not quite the last one, close to the last session, Ra actually predicted Don would be emotionally and mentally dysfunctional, and that he was going through an initiation process. Now, I don't know if that was part of initiation, but it could have been. And then after he was gone and he passed away, he came to Carla in waking visions 3 times, and to let her know that everything had occurred as was supposed to occur, that she would not understand that until she too went through death's door. Now, that also suggests that maybe this was pre-incarnatively planned for some reason. I don't know whether it was part of an initiation or an initiation that had the difficulties that are, I think, so unique, where you consider there was this deleterious energy exchange between them, where Don was so worried about being able to continue to support LNO research because Eastern Airlines, that he flew for as a pilot, was going bankrupt, and that Carla had been suffering so much pain and psychic attacks and had so much difficulty with that. And he was looking for a way to keep these difficulties from happening. Our negative friend of 5th density had attempted to misplace Carla's spirit into negative realms. And that bothered Don a great deal, that such a thing might be happening or could happen. So this deleterious energy exchange that happened because they were as one since before time. And you have to try to wrap your head around that and see what that means. It was possible. And that Don had no idea that when she said, well, why don't you let me worry about all this stuff? You be like me, small and foolish, and I'll take over the worrying part. And he said, well, sure, okay. But he didn't know that something like that was possible. So that could have caused a lot of distortion, shall we say, in the plan. So it was his great desire to see that Carla be well. And by his dying as he did, the Raw Contact ended, but it was also certain that Carla would not be misplaced in negative time space. So the fact that he told her everything turned out as it should have been kind of suggests it was all meant to happen. And, even the confusions, even the distortions, because Ra, one of the things they always say that there are no mistakes, that all is well at all times. So you try to put all that together, I don't think I'm going to understand it until I go through death's door. And I don't think any of us are, because this is, number one, as Ross said, this is not the density of understanding. We just try our best to grasp the qualities and move forward with our best thinking. So that's basically it. If anybody wants to get all the details about Don's passing, I wrote an article about it, the 34th anniversary of the passing of Don Elkins. If you Google that, it'll take you to our website, where that article I wrote 4 or so years ago is there. And everything is explained in great detail. I've just gone over the surface of it with generality. So there's everything you want to know right there.
Oh, Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. And I was not aware of that written piece. So that is on the L&O research website somewhere. Would it
Yeah.
be under the raw contact link?
Just Google the 34th anniversary of the passing of Don Elkins, and it'll take you to our website. I don't know how to get there in any other way. I'm not technologically adept.
Yeah, we'll do that for sure. Thank you. Yeah, and it is definitely a fascinating subject and something shrouded in mystery that is almost certainly beyond our understanding or our need to understand it at this level. But I was fascinated at the prospect that Don and Carla had somehow been one before time at that. I think he made some references in the journal to perhaps Don had planned his incarnation this time around to focus on wisdom, and that's why he was had somehow made some sort of arrangement to be emotionally detached from everything. Or maybe it's the other way around. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on this a little bit.
When he was 26 years old, he had had enough experience in the world by that time to see that people made choices either greatly out of positive or negative feelings, that they let their feelings take them on a merry-go-round ride. And they made poor choices because they were so influenced by both positive and negative feelings. So he decided that he was not going to do that. He was going to be an observer, an objective observer. So for the rest of his life, he basically was an observer and was very wise and cool and usually made the right choices. And but in effect, I think what was happening was that he closed his heart. He decided not to use catalyst. And later on, toward the end of his life, I think that part of what was happening was when that deleterious energy exchange happened, he no longer had that armor to protect himself from the emotions of the world, what was going on. And so he was experiencing a concentrated sort of feeling of everything. And it was really hard for him. So that was the thing that happened where he became an objective observer.
And am I understanding correctly that it was sort of the reverse for Carla in terms of the balance between love and wisdom?
Well, that was what she was attempting to take on, but it turned out that she really also did not have any armor to protect herself. She had that great love that was always the hallmark of Carla. You know, her heart was wide open, and she wanted to be of service whenever she could, wherever she could, however she could. And when that deleterious energy exchange occurred, Don's personality was also in her. And so she had to work pretty hard to cope with that because she didn't have the armor to protect her. And that was difficult for her. So the last year of the raw contact was very difficult for all three of us because all of this stuff was coming together at one time. And but I think each of us was also most grateful to have been able to have 106 sessions and 2,600 questions to ask those are raw, to get enough information that I could do something like go through my Camelot journal and look for supporting quotes, because areas were covered more than one time, many times, energy centers, the different densities of creation, the methods of perceiving the reality around it. You know, it was Don would frequently ask questions, the same basic question in a little different way, and get more information, get kind of it rounded out more, you know, like more facets to the crystal. And so there's just so much information there. So we were extremely grateful for that. And then we had to learn as we went along the way, because, you know, observing our free will and protecting it was number one on Ra's list. They would answer any question we asked as long as it did not infringe on our free will or anybody else's free will. Because free will is the way we progress in our spiritual journeys, making decisions. And so it was a mountaintop experience for 95% of the time, being able to ask these questions and get answers back. You know, we thought we were, you know, in another reality.
Well, indeed, and such a beautiful thing that that legacy and that contact continues through the quote channelings and through the harmony and unity found in the current iteration of the LNL channeling team. So yeah, much love and gratitude for all who have been part of that and helped. You're carrying the hopes and dreams of all of us on your shoulders. Thank you. And yes, for sure wanted to recommend Jim's Camelot Journal to anyone who doesn't follow it. It is available through the LNL website, and a delightful way to see Jim's reflections on all 106 sessions of the raw contact, with his reflections 40 some years later, and now his reflections on the living law, the law of 102 book coming up. Jim, I had one more question that I wanted to ask you that I don't think you've ever mentioned in the Camelot Journal. Before I did that, I wanted to encourage anyone who's on the Zoom call with us today, if you have any questions that you would like to ask, please feel free to put them in the chat window, and we would love to have you have a chance to ask them. All questions are great questions, and we would love to hear whatever you are seeking for today. Otherwise, I believe, Jim, that Morris had mentioned to us a few weeks ago in one of our Tuesdays Zoom sessions that Don had met Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, at least once sometime in the early 60s, before the Star Trek show had even begun airing on TV. And I believe Morris had said something to the effect that Don told him about a movie that he wanted to make. Do you have any recollections of that meeting? Do you have any details to share on that?
Actually, I don't.
Must have been fascinating
to me. I do know, at least I think I know, when I've read about Gene Roddenberry having gone to channeling circles before he began the Star Trek series, and coming up with free will that I was just talking about, you know, the prime prerogative, free will. And so I think he may have had some Confederation input into the general outline for the Star Trek series. But no, I didn't know that Don might have met Gene Roddenberry. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he met a lot of people that, you know, ended up eventually to be fairly famous in the metaphysical circles.
This happened back in about 1974, 1975. It was before Jim was there with LNL. That Don told me about it. He actually met Gene Roddenberry back in the 60s, but he told me about it when I became active in the group 74, 75.
Yeah.
Do you know, Morris, if it was just one meeting or more than one meeting?
I don't know the answer to that. It was when he was working on a movie that Don was working on a movie. It was actually his second attempt at a movie, and he was out in Los Angeles because, again, as an Eastern Airline pilot, he was out there from time to time and had arranged to meet with Roddenberry to discuss making a movie like this. And he did discuss with him what the telepathic contacts that the group had, and explained the Confederation concept. So that all took place. That was all prior to actually having Star Trek showing up on TV.
Right, which is all the more fascinating. And for folks who aren't aware, Morris Hoagland is vice president on the board of LNL Research, and has been for the last 40 years or so. So close friend of Jim and Don and Carlos from the beginning. And yeah, that's fascinating, because I was aware that Gene Roddenberry had been an active participant in channeling sessions with the entities known as the Council of Nine in the mid 70s, I believe. And this was a group that was channeled by Phyllis Schlemmer, I believe, who was working in partnership with Andrea Puhardt, who was mentioned in the Raw Contact as being one of two channels of semi-undistorted channelings of the Council of Nine. But I figured if that was in 1974 that he had been doing that, then that was well after Star Trek had already run on TV. So yeah, fascinating that Don would have had these communications with them before Star Trek, because it doesn't take much imagination to see a lot of parallels between Star Trek and what we've learned from the Confederation, and especially in terms of the whole Confederation and Empire and Prime Directive and free will and all that good stuff. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. I do want to go ahead and turn to our questions from the chat window. Sue-Ann, I believe you had actually sent me a question a couple of days ago. You weren't sure if you were going to be able to join us today, but I see that you are here. Would you like to ask your question of Jim? Are you there, Sue-Ann?
Yes. You want me to ask my question first? Okay, thank you. Hi, Jim. So I have a question concerning the raw material. Is the definition of logos and sub-logos and sub-sub-logos? I noticed that in different sessions that Ra sometimes refer to mind-body complexes as sub-logos and sometimes as sub-sub-logos. So in your opinion, like what is logos? Is that the universe or the solar system? And what is the example of sub-logos and sub-sub-logos?
The logos is the creative force that creates what we would call a galaxy. Our Milky Way galaxy has 250 million stars or sub-Logoi in it that were created by the logos. So our sun would be a sub-logos. And each of us on the planet would be sub-Logoi. Occasionally, Ra would make what I believe would be a mistake in saying that some people would be they said that some planets would be a sub-logos, and then also the people on them would be sub-logos. But that could be the case. You know, our planet, our Mother Earth could also be a sub-logos, as we are sub-logoi.
Easy to get confused, I would imagine, between sub-sub-sub-Logoi and sub-sub-sub-sub-sub-Logoi. Did you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, thank you. So I believe he referred to the archetypes are specific to our logos, he would call. So that means in our galaxy that the archetype is development blueprint for everyone, like within the galaxy, for all the planets. Is that your understanding?
If you look at the cosmic mind of the one infinite creator, then the next mind that comes into being is the archetypical mind of the various logoi, such as the logos of our Milky Way galaxy. And they all have a blueprint for the process of evolution that each of us goes through in the mind, body, and spirit complexes. So that is the way the mind of the creator is, you might say, stepped down or creating the universe around us and our ability to perceive it as a means of advancing our own spiritual evolution in mind, body, and spirit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue-Ann.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
Great question. Thank you, Sue-Ann. Excuse me. I see Ishan, do you also have a question?
Hello, Jim. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, Ishan.
So first of all, I would like to ask you, Regarding the LL research, so sorry to ask you here because I was not able to contact Gary after first email. So I was volunteering for a Hindi translation of the Law of One. So he had given me a message and email. Then I had given him for the confirmation so that I could start working on the translation. So would you just make him proceed the mail because it has been almost 2 weeks. So I could actually start the translation of it. So I just agree with all the terms that you have said.
Okay, so you haven't got a response back from Gary, is that it, about being a translator?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'll definitely let him know. They have been so busy for the last 3
I can understand.
weeks. I think his inbox is probably full to bursting, but he will eventually see you, and I'll let him know.
Indeed, no issues.
Yeah.
So I was a question, first of all, regarding, I would like to ask you about the spiritual entropy. So the spiritual energy losses that actually happens when we seek the creator. So I had read in about sessions 82, it was regarding the 6 density negative person who was starting onto the path of serving the creator. He actually has been so wise that he actually understand that being the service to self, that creating the boundary between the self and not understanding unity actually causes a spiritual entropy and causes the loss of energy, of spiritual energy. And that thing resonated with me a lot. Like, I actually turned from service to self to service to others just because I was feeling an energy loss due to my orientation to service to self. Can you elaborate on the spiritual entropy due to being service to self?
Well, basically, Ra described the negative path as the path of that which is not, because it separates and tries to control itself, control others. And that is not in alignment with the truth of the unity of all creation, all being the one creator equally. So when negative entities attempt to separate themselves from others and control them in order to gain their power, there is a bleeding of this energy. It's Ra called a spiritual entropy, which is not being efficiently used. It's being used in a way that is less than perfect because it sees the creation around it in a distorted lens. And because it sees itself as that which shall control all others, it is not realizing the ultimate truth of the reality of unity. So there is an entropy that is the result of misperceiving the nature of reality and how a negative entity would apply its understanding to its own spiritual journey. So this spiritual entropy eventually catches up with the negative path after it has been chosen in the 3rd density and then goes through 4th, 5th. The problem comes in the 6th density when it is necessary for everyone who wants to go forward in the 6th density to see all as the creator, the self, which isn't hard for the negative entity, but see other selves also as the creator, equal to the self. And the negative 6th density entity at that time is wise enough to discover, well, I can't go any further doing that. So they reverse their polarity. They don't have to go back and start over. They just reverse it because, as Ra said, the creator blinks neither at the light nor the darkness. Their power is the same as ours. So they have the same power, basically. They just can't go any further with it. So being that wise, they reverse it and become positively oriented entities. So that lasts until the middle of the 6th density, where the concept of polarity is abandoned, because as a tool, it has gotten them where they want to be. From that point forward, they simply reflect the true nature of the unity of creation. There is no need anymore to be positive or negative. You are the one creator, basically, at that point, and moving forward eventually into the 7th density of the law of foreverness and becoming one with the creator in truth and in every aspect.
So it is about when sixth density approaches, the person actually has gotten all the teachings of the negative and the positive polarity. So to say, that is why all the polarities has been abandoned. So in a sense, I have also heard somewhere like the beings of sixth density are also called the architects of reality. Can you elaborate on this further?
The what of reality? I didn't quite catch the word.
The architect of reality.
Oh, the archetypical reality?
The architect.
Reality.
Yes, the architect of reality.
Okay. Yeah, they are that which creates their own reality by the way they perceive it and move forward into it. And the more they create it as an architect in harmony with the truth of unity, then the more they move in closer and closer harmony and unity with the one creator within all things.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Well, thank you too. I appreciate your questions.
Great questions, Ishant. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
I see Bill has a question. Would you like to unmute your mic, Bill, and ask?
Yes, thank you, Jim, for being here, taking our questions. I would like to ask, in the Confederation literature, it always talks about tabernacling with the creator within in your meditation. And I would like to know if the Confederation has given tips on how to tabernacle with the creator within.
Well, basically, that's what meditation is all about. And each person will perceive that tabernacling in a unique way. Sometimes you may get words, you may get thoughts, you may get feelings, you may get intuitional impulses, or it may be that within your being, you feel a connection with the one creator that gives you a sense of peace and purpose. There's really no way to say exactly how everyone becomes aware of meditation as a way of listening to the creator or tabernacling, as it is said. So this is something that I think we best accomplish through intentions, perhaps beginning our meditation with a prayer and asking the creator to speak to us in some fashion. Usually, as Carla said, the way we are aware is that there are thoughts too deep for words that come through, because our words are limited in what they can reflect as information and inspiration. But the creator can inspire us in so many ways. And I think one of the words I've appreciated most in raw contact is unique, how everyone's unique. And so this appreciation of the creator through meditation will also be unique. And I think what any of us need to do is simply set the intention to commune or tabernacle with the creator each time we meditate.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Please.
Okay. When I meditate, I have like tinnitus and a lot of noise distractions and stuff like that. I go outside in the day, there's flies buzzing all over me. I go at night, I get bitten by mosquitoes. So did the Confederation give any tips on how to transmute like when there's not silence when you're meditating, like generators running in the background and stuff like that? I mean, unless I can find like a deprivation chamber or something, I always got noise, and including constant, buzzing, ringing in my ear. So I was wondering how to transmute the silence, the lack of silence.
I've had tinnitus myself since I was 12 years old.
Oh.
And since then, I've never known a moment of silence. But I think I made it as a pre-incarnated choice, because Probably I was very good at meditating before this incarnation. In order to get better, I would need to challenge myself in some way. So tinnitus, the lack of silence. So my advice is to ignore it. That's what I do. And it usually works, I mean, you've just mentioned tinnitus, so now I can hear it in my ears, but most of the time I don't hear it because I don't pay any attention to it.
Wow. Fascinating. Any follow-up questions, Bill? We could easily spend an hour talking about meditation, so I would encourage, if you do have follow-up questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I do see one or two more questions in the chat window. Otherwise, I would encourage anyone on the Zoom call right now, if you have any follow-ups, to feel free to put them in. Bill, for what it's worth, one thing that came to me as I was listening to your question is earbuds and meditative music.
Doesn't work.
Something that could possibly work for you.
Inside your
doesn't work with tinnitus, huh?
No.
Feel free to disregard that unsolicited advice then. I see, Prajwal, you had a follow-up question related to something that Ishan said.
Yes. So it's an honor, Jim, to meet you face to face. It's been more than a decade since I've been following the raw material. In a cyber cafe in India, I was searching about spirituality and things. And when I came across the raw material, I was taking printouts, I couldn't get a book. I don't know, there was a book. So I checked out the website. I was so excited to read this material, like all these densities, chakras you are describing. It's like I'm gaining back the knowledge, what I previously had. I felt like that. So veil has been lifted. I didn't know any of that. So I was taking all the printouts, reading it, studying it, like I was still in high school. So when I came across the raw material, and my reality shifted from then on. So I came to know that Ishan is translating raw material to Hindi. So I belong to South India, where we have several languages. I speak a language called Kannada. It is more than a 2,000-year-old language. So I would like to translate it to my mother tongue, Kannada, as well. So I will speak with Ishan about the process, how to go about it. So along with that, I'm very thankful. I'm all ears. I don't want to ask any questions. You have answered so many places already. I'm very thankful for this, meeting that has been set up by you. I want to be of more service to the creator that we all are, part of. And one more thing that Ishan was talking about, and Jim answered so beautifully about 6 density. I think as we reach higher and higher densities, from my realization, we become an instrument to God, right? Like the piano play, in the raw material, they describe that. Like as we become more closer to the one infinite creator, with a balanced energy centers, we become an instrument to God. So when we offer ourselves to the service to the creator, he connects us in the right, makes us to be at the right place at the right time, which is what I came across by studying many sages, saints' life. So even I will consider Jim as a saint, a sage, like figure now, as he's, there is a saying in our culture, like milk is when we, do it, what is it? We take out, then the ghee comes out. Churning, yes. Churning of milk, like that. As we go deeper into a subject, so more gems and pearls comes out. And I'm very thankful. I've been running a Facebook group, Law of One, more than close to a decade now. And thank you all. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. And if Jim can add a few words about our ancient Indian culture, our Vedic culture, as he studied Bhagavad Gita, I would like to know about from Jim. Like anything you want to.
First of all, if you write Gary at contact@llresearch.org and let him know you want to be translating, then they can get you on that path to do that. Ra had some very high praise for the Indian people, that you had for so long been on the spiritual path that you knew much more than most do in the world about the inner realms and about the levels of advancement that are possible within this third density, and that we should actually try to pay more attention to that. And I think, the Devacanic realms, and they said there were more beyond that, which they did not elaborate on. So I think that India is one of the great spiritual centers on Earth. And I'm now reading a book about a fellow from the United States that wanted to go to India as a teenager, just to be able to be there and to experience what was available for anybody who was a spiritual seeker there. And it's called The Journey Home. And Rabindranath, I forgot his last name, but he was from the suburbs of Chicago. And I couldn't believe as a teenager he was going through all this work to get there. But that is the way it is. People throughout history have been making their way to India in order to take advantage of the history India has as a spiritual center. And so glad to know that such a place exists and help make possible for the planet Earth's population to have knowledge that comes from those of India who have contacted the Creator within.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions, Prashwal?
Yeah, it's beautiful to connect with you, Jim, the man who is responsible for this, lifting of veil of so many souls. Because we in India also have a lot of books, spiritual books and everything. But the way I connected with the raw material, I feel like I'm part of the soul group of raw, or maybe it is my illusion of grandeur or something. But this material spoke to me. Like, I think there are many souls who have incarnated, like me, who doesn't connect with all the old spiritual books. Maybe this one, New Age, whatever they call. I think if I translate it, I would be able to touch more people with my service. That would be an honor, Jim. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes.
I think that what you're experiencing is very likely being a wanderer from a higher density that's discovered this. And Carla said, wanderers look at the law of one and the raw contact as a letter from home, that you realize this isn't something you're finding out for the first time. You're remembering it because you already know it. And I think it's a beautiful thing that the wanderers can. I think there are a lot of people here on Earth now that are wanderers and are finding the law of one and the raw contact, and discovering that they do have a purpose here, a special purpose to be of service to others in a way that perhaps others would not be able. So it's a beautiful thing.
Indeed. Yeah, and you are for sure providing a beautiful service to others and bringing people together from all over the world in unity and translating this work into all the languages of the world. It's a beautiful gift. So thank you for doing that. I see Ishan actually had another question also about body polarities. Would you like to unmute your mic and ask, Ishan?
Yes, thank you, Jonathan. So it was regarding the body polarities, like we have male and female bodies in our creation, and these bodies, have a kind of, not only that sexual relationship, but also like an emotional, physical relationship and all sorts of things. And the kind of the spiritual relationship that happens with an entity of opposite body polarity actually creates a different kind of polarization with regarding to the service to the Creator. And I would like to know more about that, the role of body polarities in service to the Creator.
Well, the body polarity is something that is related to the, what you might call the sexual energy exchanges that the male principle and the female principle can engage in and can use as a means by which to advance in their own spiritual journey in what Ra called high sexual magic. Now, in the Ra session, their culture, when they were in third density in Venus, this was one of the ways that they related to each other in relationships and sexual energy transfers. The male has more physical energy and transfers that in the sexual relations, whereas the female has more mental, emotional, and spiritual energy and transfers that to the male, which has less of that. So each helps the other in a certain way to become more balanced in their polarity. And if this is done in the way that is dedicated to the service of the one infinite creator, then that type of high sexual magic is much more effective because it is being used for the service to everyone in some fashion. In the Ra contact, Carla and I engaged in sexual energy transfers. After we discovered they were helping the Ra contact, we discovered that after session 16, which was very long, that it actually created more time, as we see it, for Ra to speak through Carla, because it increased her vital energy, which is the energy of the mind, the body, and the spirit combined and used in a spiritual way for a spiritual purpose. And we both dedicated our sexual energy exchanges to the one infinite creator. And that allowed the Ra contact to be energized or fueled so it lasted longer. And in general, any two entities of positive and negative, male and female, not polarizing silver self or others, but positive and negative, male and female. The male principle is that which reaches, and the female principle is that which awaits the reaching. So when that is done in this way in sexual energy exchanges, then that way can be used as a means of advancing one's spiritual journey for the purpose of being of service to others.
Thank you, Jim. So I have a follow-up question regarding this. Like, is there any practices of initiation regarding this, or talk about the magic ritual?
There may be. We never were given that information, but they did allude to the possibility of that, but I don't have specific information to give you on that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for your insight.
Well, thank you for your question. I appreciate it.
Great questions. Thank you. I do see Andre has a question, and I did want to note that we are approaching the end of our hour. So if anyone on the call has a question they've been kind of holding back on or thinking about asking, now would be a great time. Feel free to put it in the chat window, and we'd love to hear your question. Otherwise, Andre, do you have a question you'd like to ask? Andre says he doesn't have a question. Sorry. Never mind. I had one follow-up question to something that came up a while ago in the discussion, Jim, and this has to do with energy ray centers. I was just wondering whether this pattern of the 7 energy centers from red to violet, do you have any sense for how universal or not this pattern is throughout the creation as we know it? Is it something that you think all entities everywhere and all logoi have, or do you think it's something that's more unique to our logos or limited to some logoi?
As far as we know, it's universal. It's the means by which people travel through various qualities of their own being, which reflects the being of the creator and the 7 densities. So the energy centers and the densities are very closely related, and they are universal, both of them.
That is fascinating. Do you think it's possible that at some point in evolution, if not in this logos, then in other logoi, that those energy ray centers, those different colors merge into white light, pure white light? I'm only asking because I seem to recall one Quo channeling session where they said something to the effect that if the people present in the room could see Quo among them, they would see them as a ball of white light or something like that.
Ra mentioned that the fully activated entity, that means all energy centers are fully activated, not just balanced, but fully activated, would produce a white light. But that type of entity is very rare.
Thank you. And I see Curtis has a question. Curtis, would you like to ask a question? Sorry for missing you earlier in the chat window. My bad.
No problem. Thank you. I have a question about other entities who do channel, like Abraham Hicks. Do you know of Abraham Hicks?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, when I was at the gathering in Asheville, a lot of people there listened to Abraham Hicks also, which is like a bunch of entities do speak about positive things, about being good, like doing the golden rule. But I noticed only in the law of one, the Ra teachings, they talk about polarizing service to self or service to others. The other ones do not talk about polarizing. They just talk about how to feel, how to enjoy life, and so on. And then last week, we read session 89. And Ra, they were talking about when Ra got harvested, it was a positive harvest. But only 16% of the population were harvested service to self, service to others. And I was like, 16%, that's actually, and that was supposed to be a positive harvest, that's pretty low. So what my thoughts on it was that a lot of us listening to this get hooked up on, oh, we have to polarize, we have to do this, we have to polarize, when we should just enjoy life, because enjoying life and treating others properly is what the Creator wants. And we shouldn't focus on polarizing so much unless we came here as wanderers to raise the vibration. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, everyone has a path that's right for him or her. And if you feel that that is something that is most appropriate for you, then I would say follow that path. I would say, though, that it sounds to me like a pretty positive path. I mean, you're treating people well, the way they wish to be treated, the way you would wish to be treated, the golden rule. And that is something that a lot of people don't do. And so if you don't look at it as polarization, that's fine. You don't have to look at it as polarization. Just do it, because I think it's very positive.
Okay. And real quick, I would like to thank you for all your gatherings you had recently. I enjoyed myself, and hope you continue doing this every year.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, and I hope we can provide more gatherings for you and others like you who are seeking the truth. We're all seeking the truth, however we perceive it, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you, Curtis. I see Elizabeth had a question. Elizabeth, would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Yes, thank you so much, Jim. I'm super excited to talk to you today. I've been following Donald Hoffman, and he wrote a book that basically says our entire reality is an illusion, and he's trying to prove it scientifically. And every time I read in the Raw Contact, he always called it your illusion. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts that science is kind of finally catching up to what you guys had discovered in 1981.
Well, it's interesting that somebody is trying to scientifically prove it. I wish them good luck, but I think, it's very right, very true. Because we have this veil of forgetting between our conscious and unconscious minds, we don't see the nature of reality the way it really is. This unified reality. It's a reality made out of love, and everything is light. And it's, the photons vibrating at various levels and angles of vibration creates what we call the material universe. And, there is no separation. We are all one, even though we don't seem to be one. So if science can find some way of affirming that, I'd be really amazed. I'm really glad to hear there's somebody making that effort. I didn't know about that.
He is He is, and he's saying that space-time is over. It's dead. I mean, not that it's dead, but it's no longer being used as the base. And I think he's trying to advocate for consciousness to be the base of all the science that's built upon it.
Well, I think he's on the right track. There are people like that. Don was on like that. He thought outside the box. Mm-hmm. I think that's what this fellow's doing. And he's probably right. We're so close to the graduation of fourth density that I'm pretty sure that everything is much more likely to be perceived correctly as being time, space, or spiritual, metaphysical, rather than just physical and mundane. So I think we're getting there. And hopefully everybody on the planet will find some way to find that love in their hearts that opens them to love everybody else, and we can all go forward together into the fourth density.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your question. That was unique. I really appreciate it.
Indeed. Thank you so much. I was laughing at the question, just realizing that trying to scientifically prove oneness seems almost impossible, because you, by definition, have a subject and an object, which means by definition makes it very difficult to prove. But I suppose if anything I've seen in science, it would be quantum physics. Seems to be the branch of science that is somehow discovering or rediscovering the concept of oneness. So look forward to that. I know Rod and Quo have both talked about changes in subatomic particles emerging that seem to hint that same thing too. So thank you for bringing it up. I see Daniel had a question. Daniel, would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Yes, thank you very much. Hi, Jim. It is about session 33. So I just read it recently, I think the third or the fourth time, but this particular time it came up something which I want to ask you. I would like to repeat it as you asked on the end of the session 33, if there's anything what you can do to be the instrument more comfortable. But in this time answered something which was a bit unusual. He said, this working as well, you are attempting to be consciously. We thank you. May we say we enjoy your vision of your social memory complex, drinking one of your liquids while speaking through this instrument. Is it meaning of metaphysical, or is it just he enjoy the drinking while you give her some dip of water or something like that?
Well, it was referring to a conversation that Don and Carl and I had the night before we had that session with Rob. And we were just kind of, joking around, trying to figure out, well, I wonder how Rob becomes aware that we want to speak with them. Do you suppose they're cruising around the universe in their little jalopy, having a beer, and then all of a sudden the call comes through and one of them says to the other, well, you want to take that, or you want to keep drinking your beer? And so that's where that came from. They were obviously aware of what we were doing before we were in contact with them and could refer to it in the end of the next session.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a good one.
What a great question. What a great story. Thank you. Rod drinking and driving. That's definitely an image I will be holding near and dear to me for a while. That is hilarious. Jessica, I see you have a question. Would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Yeah, hi, Jim. So I'm really glad that you mentioned the article that you wrote on the 34th anniversary of Don's passing. I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet, but I'm glad that you mentioned that. So my question's related, somewhat related to that. So it's my understanding that the spiritual seeker can be more prone to psychic readings. So I was wondering if there's anything we can do to protect ourselves from psychic reading, or can you give us advice on how one might choose to respond to it? I know that we've talked about the lesser banishing ritual that you used before, but I was kind of wondering what outside of that we could use.
Well, every spiritual seeker of truth is standing closer and closer to the light of the Creator. And there is what's called the law of responsibility. As you stand close to the light, you need to reflect that light as closely as possible, which means to live up to your highest spiritual principles as you know them. So the only way that psychic greetings can be offered to such a seeker is if the seeker consciously makes a choice that is less harmonious than is possible for that path, for that seeker. If you get into a disagreement with somebody and you don't work to resolve the difficulty, if you have some sort of misunderstanding or whatever, you are even consciously angry at somebody, that is a conscious choice that can be magnified by negatively oriented entities to cause you more problems. They can't put anything in your path that you haven't consciously chosen yourself. So you need to make those conscious choices in the positive polarity as much as is possible for you. If you do fail to do that and you suffer a psychic greeting, then Ross suggested the best way to deal with it is to, in your meditation, send light and love to the entity that is greeting you, and send light and love to the greeting, which is what the choice you made. Then send light and love to yourself. And then to armor yourself, put light and love around you as an armor. So basically, it's using light and love to protect yourself and to remove the psychic greeting. You send that love and light, truly feeling it, not sending it, I want you to go away, so here's some love and light, because that's not real love and light. So you have to really mean it.
Wonderful, thank you. And I have one more quick question. Is there anything, or what would you hope that we would take away from Don's death as well as his life?
Well, the one thing that Carla said in my journal entry from yesterday was never, never make a deal with the loyal opposition. The reason she said that was that she felt that he was trying to protect her so that she would not be displaced in negative time space. And so he basically was saying, take me and not her. And she said, that's not a good idea, Don, but that's the way it worked out. So that's my thought on that.
Wonderful, thank you.
Well, thank you for your question. I appreciate it.
Thank you for explaining. Thank you for the question, Scott, and thank you for the story, Jim. I did see that reference in the journal and wasn't quite sure what she was referencing. So thank you for the clarification.
He asked once, he just asked me, and I think Carla too, if there was any way that he could communicate with that fifth density negatively oriented entity and try to figure out a way to keep Carla safe. And we never knew if he followed through in any way, but he asked the question, which we thought was.
Oh. And that is the highest form of love. I can imagine being willing to sacrifice your love for others, service to others. So I can see how it was a beautiful plan, if that was the plan. We have time for one more question, and I believe Pashwa has one more question.
Thank you, Jonathan. So Jim, the earlier gentleman was talking about, doing the right thing, following the golden rule. In that question, he was talking about people who are just like, be yourself, do good. In that mindset, we will not be able to improve or better ourselves, I feel. So what is your take on that? That is first thing. Like we wouldn't have Star Trek without the opposition, right? They wouldn't develop the shield or technology to push themselves forward in this material reality. That is the first thing. What is your take on that? Second thing is, why did the creator create a situation where one animal is eating another animal? I had this thought since childhood. Like, if one animal is eating another animal, of course, they will hate that animal. There will be no love for that animal. We cannot feel like I'll send love light to you. Means in the animals, in the animal kingdom, I'm talking about. I hope you're understanding. I'm a little fumbling here. So in that scenario, like, why did the creator create such a situation where one has to be in service to self? Like a lion will be eating a deer, right? So can we say it is a service to self behavior, or what should the lion do? Or just your take? I want to learn from the master.
Well, the first part of the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, I think is a way of reaffirming the fact that we are all one. We're all the same creature. It's the concept of unity made more easily understood. As to why animals act like animals, they don't yet have the spirit complex. As Carla said, nature is red in tooth and claw, and that's the way it is. And it's not a polarizing effect. It's just the way they are. And animals can learn, especially pets, as Roz said, how to become spiritually oriented by developing devotion with the owner and love, so that they have the choice. They can then activate their spirit complex and make a choice to give that love back to the owner that has given it to them, and then eventually become a third density creature. So as far as the rest of the animal world, it's just the way things are. And it's in its own way, it's how evolution occurs, that where one animal eats another animal, that animal lives for a while and then is maybe killed by another animal. Their remains become eventually back into earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and that everything begins again. It's in cycles. And I don't have any better answer than that. It's just the way things work, but it can be different. Animals can change. They can become spirited. They can move in onto the third density and not have that animalistic behavior anymore. Although it does seem like even in third density, there's this concept of bellicosity and, coming up against each other in battle. And it seems like that's something that we need to learn, how not to do that, because there were entities from the Sirius galaxy back in 1973 that evolved from trees, and they landed their craft in Pascagoula, Louisiana, and abducted Charlie Hickson and Calvin Parker just to study Charlie Hickson's war memories, because their natural state of being was meditation. So they needed to study bellicosity to balance it, just as in our life, we are so bellicose, we have to have more times of meditation to balance that out. So it seems that this antagonism, this anger, this warlike nature, bellicosity, is something we need to work with. And the animals do it first and do it in a natural way. And then here we, in our third density, we still work with that concept in some way, learning how to balance it and not to do it, to go through it and get out of it and use it as catalyst and to grow, so that we become more and more the one infinite creator through processing all of these different opposites that come our way, that, we are 360-degree beings. That is a unified being. When you are all things, then you are the creator. You're all things that might not, if you took them individually, you might not want to be that. But if you balance it with its positive aspect, then you're that too. So it's a way, I think, of becoming the creator. And sometimes but using catalyst, it's difficult, because most of the time the catalyst we're working with is of a negative nature. You're jealous, you're angry, you're confused. Something is working on you that you just wish it wasn't. But if you look at it, it's grist for the mill. It's food for growth, and we can use it. We can do it, but it's a long road back home to one, even though the one is within us.
So Jim, I have a follow-up to that. So basically, as we move to higher densities, we will be consuming less denser foods, and maybe consume only light, like Ra or any fourth density beings. Like I think I have read in raw material itself that in fourth density they would be consuming light, something like that. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Well, each density has a body. Each density has a time-space or a metaphysical realm or a spiritual realm, and a space-time or a physical realm. And each physical realm has a physical body that has to be fueled in some way. So in the fourth density, there's a kind of a broth that is utilized. And in fifth density, and in the sixth density, there's still this broth of golden light hue that Rod described it. And it fuels the body. But in some ways, in the fifth density, I believe it was, it also, no, the fourth density, it also helps with patience, because in order to consume this broth, this soup, they have to stop being of service to others long enough to consume it. So it helps them with patience. And then in the higher densities, it's solace. And in the fifth density, it helps to be with other people and to be doing something together, because the fifth density is more free, whereas work in the fourth and sixth have to do with social memory complexes. In the fifth density, it's individuals can work individually. It's a very free density. So being able to come together with others that maybe you haven't seen for a while, or, and have a meal, have some broth. And so it serves different purposes, but there is a food that has to fuel the body in each of the densities.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
What great questions, and what great stories, explanations. Thank you so much. We are about out of time for today, and I did want to thank everyone for asking your questions today. Every single question was really wonderful and delightful and great learning for all of us. And Jim wanted to thank you, as always, for giving of your time and presence to be here and help us all learn how to be better people and how to grow in our spiritual development. Jim, were there any last thoughts you wanted to say before we part ways for this time?
Well, I do thank you for all your questions. They were really wonderful questions. And, I learned too through this questioning process. And that's the way we all grow together. That's the way a social memory complex is formed. We all seek together. As Ross said, those of like mind who together seek shall far more surely find. So it's in sessions like this that we all can seek, we all can learn and grow and help each other do it. So I thank you as much as you thank me, because we are all one. And that's just all there is to it. The one infinite creator is expressing itself uniquely in each of our being. And I'm grateful for each of your beings. I'm grateful for being with you. And I wish you the best. I love you all.
Indeed, we love you too. And that, my friends, is third density Earth. Come for the bellicosity, stay for the curly fries. Good times to be had. Jim, thank you so much for everything. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you do in service to others. For everyone here on this call, thank you so much for joining us from all points on third density Earth. It's been a joy hanging out with you. And for all who are watching on YouTube at some other time, space time. Love you all very much. In the love and light of the one infinite creator.
Love you all.
Namaste.
Love you all.
You all.